Hello everyone, welcome back to Learn Then Code. So we are starting the DSA series, that is Data Structures and Algorithm series in C++. But before that, I wanted to make sure that the series can help as much student as possible. And that is why I am first creating a prerequisite video for students who have just started learning programming in C++. So in this video, I'll be covering the basic concepts of C++ like preprocessor directive, main functions, primitive data types, and functions, etc. So let's start with it. Also, I want you to introduce with a great platform by Newton School. They are providing you great content, certification courses, trainings from people who are currently working at MNCs like Google and Microsoft and Amazon to help you to be job ready. So they have tied up with more than 700 companies. So they will definitely help you to get a job also. So what you're waiting for, you should definitely check out this platform to get courses, to get mentorship, to network with great people, to build community, to get expertise in particular technology, to get a job, and all these things at absolute zero cost. So हम basics cover करेंगे through examples. So I will take a very simple examples to go through all the important concepts, and the question is addition of two numbers. Addition of two numbers. ओके सो सबसे पहले मैं इसका कोड नोटपैड में लिख दूंगी देन आई विल कंपाइल इट यूजिंग अ कंपाइलर सो हाउ कैन वी डू इट इज hash include the first header is iostream that we require, then using namespace std, and don't worry, I will go through each and every line step by step after completing my code, and I will try not to use any kind of jargons and difficult words so that any beginner can understand what is written in the code. Then after using the namespace std line, I will have my main function. And in this, I can simply write there is a variable a. I'm assigning a value 5 to it, then another variable b, and the value of b is also 5. And let's just print the addition of two number a plus b. And then at the end, return 0. So this is a very simple code, and let's just try to understand it line by line. So in the first line, if you can observe, the first line is starting with hash, but other lines are not. Why it is so? So it is because that the first line is a preprocessor directive. Now, what is a preprocessor directive? Preprocessor directive. By the name, it says that it is pre-processed. That means before compilation, these lines are processed. Okay, so any line which is starting with this simple hash is a preprocessor directive. Now there are many kind of preprocessor directives like hash include in our case, which is used to include header files. Now then you can have hash define to define anything. You can also have if-else statements in preprocessor directives, which is if def and if. So all these statements which are starting with hash is known as preprocessor directives in C++. Now this is our first line, which is simply adding this header known as iostream, which is input output stream that we use to take input from the user and give output back in the result. So इस वजह से ये header हमें use करना पड़ेगा because we are using this line. हम एक आउटपुट प्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं यूजर को. सो इस आउटपुट को यूज करने के लिए द सी आउट ऑब्जेक्ट दैट वी आर यूजिंग हियर इज कमिंग फ्रॉम iostream लाइब्रेरी. सो दैट इज व्हाई हमने ये इंक्लूड किया है. नाउ इन द नेक्स्ट लाइन वी आर सेइंग यूजिंग नेम स्पेस std. अब ये क्या होता है, इसके लिए सबसे पहले हमें देखना पड़ेगा नेम स्पेसेस क्या होते हैं. ओके, सो व्हाट इज नेम स्पेस? नेम स्पेसेस, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल हमें नाम से ही थोड़ा समझ आ रहा है. इट इज अ स्पेस for names in terms of function name. It can be variable names or any kind of member that you want to declare in your program. So उसके लिए हम एक space declare कर देते हैं. But why it is important? इसे समझने के लिए I will give you a use case. Let's say you have 3 boxes in front of you and the boxes has some name. Let's say this is box 1, this is box 2, and this is box 3. In all the 3 boxes, you have a ball. Okay. Now, if I will ask you to choose one of the ball, which box will you choose and which ball will you pick? It is a kind of very ambiguous statement, right? Because मैंने define नहीं किया कि आपको किस box में से choose करना है. And the ball, the name of the ball is same for all the 3 cases. But if I will ask you to choose a ball from box 3, then it is very particular that you will choose this one, right? There's no ambiguity in my instruction. So this is the same thing that namespace do. So in the code, for example, let's say I have a very basic program where I have defined a variable of type integer a is equals to 5. And I want to define another variable of type double with the same name. Can I do it? No, the answer is no. It will give compilation error. You cannot give same name to variables even if their data type is different. Why? Because अगर मैं यहाँ पे कहीं पर भी a को use करती हूँ, let's say do this operation, add 1 to a, then compiler get confused that which a to call, right? There is a kind of confusion. But now let's say you have defined a in namespace. Let's say I have defined a namespace for, let's say, int a, and I have defined int a in it. And I have another namespace for double a. You can give name whatever you want to give. It totally depends on you. Double a is equals to 5, something like this. Now, if I want to use this two variables, what I can do is I can use scope resolution operator. I have discussed about scope resolution operator in my OOPS concepts. If you haven't checked out that series, then I will definitely recommend you to please learn about OOPS and then start your DSA concepts. Okay, so you can use the scope resolution operator to give the fully qualified name in your instructions. So let's say now I want to perform this a+1 operation in my int a type. Okay, now what I can do is I will use the fully qualified name as this, then scope resolution operator a. That means I am giving the full name of the variable to the compiler so that it can resolve the conflict, and then I can add or I can do any operation that I want to perform. So this is basically the concept of namespace. Now, what is the statement of using namespace std means? It simply means that in this program that you have written below is going to use std namespace. So this namespace is defined somewhere. So you do not have to write the fully qualified names of the variable using the scope resolution operator. You can directly call them with their name. So for example, cout is a member of this std namespace. So अगर हम ये statement नहीं use करते तो आपको इसका fully qualified name use करना पड़ता. std, then scope resolution operator and cout. Right? But now as you are using this statement, that means you are telling the compiler that in your program, you are going to use the std namespace. So this is about the second line. Now in the third line, this is just a main function. You can say that it is a starting point of your code. जो आपका कोड होगा वो यहाँ से स्टार्ट होगा रन होना. Okay, so this is the first function which is called by the operating system when you start running your program. So यहाँ से आपका program रन होना start होता है and उसके बाद जो भी instruction होगी वो execute होगी. So in this instruction, you are declaring two variables. एंड डेटा टाइप्स का हमने अच्छे से कॉन्सेप्ट क्लियर किया इन दी ऊप सीरीज. सो आई विल डेफिनेटली रिकमेंड यू, अगर आपको डेटा टाइप्स के बारे में डीप में स्टडी करना है तो आप उस वीडियो को जरूर देख सकते हैं. तो इस स्टेटमेंट में हम क्या कर रहे हैं, हम टू वेरिएबल्स डिक्लेयर कर रहे हैं. फर्स्ट इज ए एंड बी, एंड हम डिक्लेरेशन के साथ उनका इनिशियलाइजेशन कर रहे हैं. दैट मीन्स हम उनको वैल्यू भी साथ में असाइन कर रहे हैं. सो इससे क्या होगा, मेमोरी में दो लोकेशन बनेंगी. एक का नाम होगा ए, एक का नाम होगा बी, और हमने दोनों को वैल्यूज असाइन कर दी हैं 5. ओके, अब इन द नेक्स्ट स्टेप व्हाट वी आर डूइंग इज सी आउट का मतलब होता है प्रिंट स्टेटमेंट. बेसिकली अगर आप में से सी किसी को आती है तो प्रिंट स्टेटमेंट का अल्टरनेटिव इन सी प्लस प्लस इज सी आउट. सो सी आउट का मतलब है हम यूजर को क्या आउटपुट दे रहे हैं. सो अब इसमें क्या होगा, अब हमारा जो प्रोग्राम था दैट वाज अबाउट एडिशन ऑफ टू नंबर्स. तो हम क्या कर रहे हैं, बिना यूजर से इनपुट लिए कुछ, अभी हमने मैनुअली यूज किया है 5 एज द 2 नंबर्स फॉर बोथ ए एंड बी, एंड हम उनका एडिशन जो है वो प्रिंट कर पा रहे हैं. सो वी आर बेसिकली राइटिंग प्रिंट a प्लस बी. सो दिस इज अ वेरी सिंपल कोड, एंड लास्ट में हम रिटर्न 0 कर रहे हैं बिकॉज हमारे इस फंक्शन का जो रिटर्न टाइप है वो इंटीजर है. दैट मीन्स वी हैव टू रिटर्न इंटीजर वैल्यू टू इट, एंड 0 से हम रेफर करना चाहते हैं दैट द प्रोग्राम इज सक्सेसफुल. सो दिस वॉज अबाउट अ वेरी बेसिक प्रोग्राम जहाँ पे हमने यूजर से कोई इनपुट नहीं दिया. नाउ इफ यू वांट टू टेक इनपुट फ्रॉम द यूजर, यू कैन यूज सी इन. इट इज अगेन एन ऑब्जेक्ट ऑफ सेम IOStream क्लास जिसे हम यूजर इनपुट के लिए यूज करते हैं. लेट्स टेक एन एग्जांपल फॉर दैट आल्सो, एंड उसके बाद हम कंपाइलर पे जाएंगे इन सारे प्रोग्राम्स को रन करने के लिए. नाउ लेट्स टेक अ मोर कॉम्प्लेक्स एग्जांपल. इट इज डिवीजन ऑफ टू नंबर्स. डिवीजन ऑफ टू नंबर्स, एंड इस बार हम यूजर से इनपुट लेंगे. सो सबसे पहले वही बेसिक लाइंस, हैश इंक्लूड IOStream. This is your header file that you are including because you want to use cin and cout, user input and user output. Then the next line is using namespace std. And why we are adding this line? To avoid writing cin and cout as std cin and std cout. To avoid using fully qualified name of cin and cout object, you are using this statement. Now the third line will be int main, where your program will start. Now अब हमें क्या करना है? This is division of two numbers. So सबसे पहली चीज जो आपको यूजर से चाहिए, which is two numbers that you want to divide. Let's declare the two variables double A and B. Now if you can observe, मैंने यहाँ पे initialization नहीं किया है because we are going to take input from the user. So now हम cin line को use करेंगे, cin object को, and then we will take input from user. So what this line do is, if you can recall, in the cout we used these arrows, and the cin we used these arrows. These are basically operators. So in case of cin, you use insertion operator. That means you want to insert something. So this is insertion operator. And in case of cout, you use this symbol, which is called extraction operator. Extraction operator, because you want to extract your output and give it to the user. So this is the extraction and insertion operator. Now in case of cin, you are using the insertion operator, and then you are inserting the value of A that you have taken from the user, and then again you are inserting the value of B into B variable in the memory that you have taken from the user. So you have taken the input from the user and you are inserting the value to the memory location. Okay, so this is about the input. Now अब हमें division perform करना है, and let's say we want to perform A by B. Okay, so what we will do is, we can use first, we can do A by B, but if you know, in the division there are some conditions also, like you have to check that B should not be 0. So अब उस केस में हम क्या करेंगे? There should be some logic in the code जिससे हम ये इंश्योर कर पाए that B अगर कभी गलती से भी यूजर 0 डाल रहा है तो यहाँ पे हमारा प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट ना हो, right? So in that case we will use conditional statements. Conditional statements. सो इनके नाम से ही हमें पता चल रहा है दैट दीज आर द काइंड ऑफ स्टेटमेंट जिनसे हम कंडीशन लगा सकते हैं अपने कोड में, एंड काफी सिंपल फॉर्मेट होता है. इट इज सिंपल इफ एंड एल्स कंडीशंस. नाउ लेट्स टेक अ लुक कि हम इन्हें कोड में कैसे यूज कर सकते हैं. ओके, सो यहाँ पे हमारा कोड था. लेट्स से अब आपको एक कंडीशन लगानी है कि इफ बी अगर हमारा कभी 0 होता है तो हमें A बाय B परफॉर्म नहीं करना, हमें यूजर को बताना है रॉन्ग इनपुट. एल्स यूजर को डिवीजन का आंसर हम रिटर्न कर सकते हैं. सो दिस इज द फॉर्मेट. सो ये अब हमारा कोड बन गया डिवीजन ऑफ टू नंबर्स का, राइट। सो हम क्या करेंगे, ये जो इफ एल्स कंडीशन है ये यहाँ पे इंसर्ट कर देंगे बिफोर प्रोड्यूसिंग आवर आउटपुट। सो इंस्टेड ऑफ दिस स्टेटमेंट ये पूरा लॉजिक यहाँ पर आ जाएगा। So this is about division of two numbers. Yeah. Now let's try to compile it also. Okay, so let's start with the first code जो हमने देखा था, that is addition of two numbers. So if you can recall हमने क्या किया था, first line was, you can verify it also. The first line was hash include IOStream. Again recall everything that I have discussed in the video. हमने IOStream क्यों यहाँ पे include किया है, because we want to use cin and cout objects. Then the next line was using namespace std, because we want to use the cin cout object without any scope resolution operator. Then int main, our main function starts here. Then I have defined two variables a, b. Let's take input from the user for this as well. Cin a, I'm using insertion operator for both the variables. Then I'm simply giving the output as a plus b. A very simple code, return 0. Now let's try to give it some value, 1 and 7. So 1 will come to A and 7 will come to B. So the answer should be 8. And as you can see, the answer is 8 here. So that means the code is working fine. Now let's say you have to perform the division of two numbers and you want to check how the if-else condition works. Let's take the example here only. Let's say A is the numerator and B is the denominator. So we are applying a condition on denominator that it should not be 0, right? And if it is 0, then print wrong input so that the user can know that he or she has provided wrong input. And in the else statement, you can simply return the output as A divided by B. So this is a very simple code. Let's give the input for 2. So the answer should be 2 in this case. Right, the answer is 2. Now let's give the input as 4 and 0. So it should return wrong input. Yeah, so the answer is wrong input. So we have verified the if-else condition. We have learned about variables, the cin and cout. So this is the basic of all the things that you should know before going into data structures and algorithm. I hope this video was helpful to you. And thank you so much for watching it till the end. See you in the next video.